Hello and welcome to the second episode of Careers In, and today we're going to be focusing on law. Today I've got Yemi with me. We've been friends for a long time now, so do you want to introduce yourself and sort of explain your interest in law?
Sure. So hi guys, so I'm Yemi. I am a finalist, so third year at Warwick, currently studying history and politics. So in terms of my background, so I've had quite varied experiences ranging from banking spring weeks to consulting placements to eventually ending up in corporate law. But in terms of why I got involved in law, I think it was a mixture of two things. So firstly, it's almost a commerciality aspect. So at least getting involved with Warwick Entrepreneurs. So Bailey's the VP at the moment, I'm the president. I think you get to experience a lot about how businesses grow, how they scale, and what are the different sort of niches that any different industry can get involved in to help that process. And I thought law would be quite a good opportunity in that. That's essentially what they do. They whether it's due diligence over contracts, whether it's advising on huge M&A deals, they work with all levels of businesses, governments, NGOs to kind of help them achieve their strategic business goals. So that's what got me kind of interested.
So Yemi's done a bunch of experience, worked for consultancies, banks, law firms during his time at uni, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that's helped him along his journey. And also, you've just secured a contract with, what do you call it in law?
So I've got a contract with Magic Circle law firm.
So those are the top five
UK firms. So it's in Canary Wharf, next to the big banks.
Perfect. So let's just jump right into the first section. We're going to be focusing on first years and sort of the best ways to get involved in law, and maybe understand a little bit more about the different sort of areas in law.
Cool. Yeah. So with first years, I think it's really important to get involved early on, specifically because there's quite a lot of myths in kind of the industry about who can apply to what. The first of which is that if you're a non-law student, then you have to wait till final year to kind of apply to these places, and that's wholly not the case. I'd say the best thing is to do your research, but with first years particularly, they can apply to open days, summer insight schemes, which are basically just opportunities, maybe half-day or full-day events to really go to the firms that you'd be potentially looking to secure a vacation scheme off, understand what it is lawyers do, listen to presentations, network with partners, trainees, associates, and so on.
So let's just take it back a step. So let's look at law from a sort of wider angle. So let's talk, what are the sort of main areas of law that you can get into, and what's the area of law that you focused on?
Absolutely. So there's three kind of key areas that graduates look to get involved in the legal industry. So firstly, it's corporate law. So that's what tends to be called commercial law, so private practice predominantly. Then there is sort of the barrister profession. So people talk of mini pupilages, pupilages. This is basically just becoming a barrister and representing sort of witnesses in court. And finally, you can go in-house. So this is particularly sort of securing a position as a legal intern within an SME, right all the way up to a big corporate FTSE 100 company. And that's basically just advising that company internally on their legal issues.
Yeah, so you've gone down the route of corporate law, and that's what we'll largely be focusing on in this video.
Absolutely.
Let's take it back to first year, and so more some of the practical steps that the big sort of corporate law firms are having. So you say insight days, right?
Yeah. So in terms of the steps, it's quite an easy process in the sense that it's quite publicized, and you just essentially go on their website, type in open days, and it comes up with all of the opportunities they tend to have, 3 to 4 a year. So it's not it is quite competitive, but not as competitive as the internships. And generally you just submit a 250 word application on, why law, why you, why the firm, all rolled into one, and maybe your application details, your degree, and so on. And from that, you either get invited to an open day or you don't. So it's really straightforward. No interviews for those insight schemes.
So the insight schemes as well. Let's talk about similar as in the finance episode. How do we utilize those insight days to network, to look at future opportunities? What's the best and the most efficient way you can use these insight days?
Yeah, I think it's really important to be switched on and be proactive, because obviously you journey down, or at least we're at Warwick, so you have to journey down to London for a few hours, so you need to make the most out of it. I say what you need to do is really try to understand and talk to as many people as possible. Don't just target like the partners because you think they're hiring. Really talk to graduate recruitment, get an understanding of the application process. Try and network with, not just for the sake of getting something out of the associates in terms of opportunities, but actually try and get that honest view on how they got into the profession, how they're settling in, and really build that rapport. So even after the open day, follow up, whether it's with email, LinkedIn. These are all great platforms which allow you to kind of continue that sort of conversation, and from that maybe develop mentors and keep meeting up with them, because all of the people there, they really do want you to succeed and want you to apply to their firm.
I mean, particularly within law, it sounds like where there is a lot more qualification process you have to go through. Be proactive rather than reactive. Go out there, talk to people that are in the profession, see if it fits your style of work or however you work as a person individually, because it might not be for you, and that's what these Insight Days are for, really, aren't they?
Yeah. So I'd say even beyond that, really try to use. There's a lot of kind of sites, and there's a lot of opportunities available. So if you want to become a lawyer, then you can look up aspiring solicitors. They often host sort of Insight Days separately from the law firms, where they invite their candidates. Same with SEO London, Rare Recruitment. These are all kind of either diversity initiatives or just to try and break down the barrier and access of students to that kind of market. So definitely utilize all of these kind of platforms, I'd say.
Great. Let's go on to the next section. Okay, so welcome to section 2. This is more moving later on the stage, in the stages. So you've had your Insight Days, you know a little bit more about what area of law that you're interested in.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the opportunities that come up during your second year and how you should be utilising them. So let's start off with the vacation schemes that law firms typically offer.
Yeah, sure. So with second year, law firms typically offer, at least with law and non-law students, vacation schemes which are 2 to 3 or 4 week even placements over the summer at the firm. And this is just, predominantly focusing on work shadowing, seeing if you're the right fit for the firm, both culturally as well as commercially, in terms of how good you are on the job. The process is a lot more kind of drawn out, and you have to go through a lot more steps to apply. But I'd say that it's definitely the best opportunity to really impress and really find out whether the legal profession is something you want to go into, because there are a lot of kind of myths out there, but unless you actually experience the culture in and of itself, it's like going there and actually spending quality time at your desk, 8 to 6, just doing work, that's how you kind of figure out whether it's something you want to go into in the long term, I'd say.
Can we talk more about the application process as well? So maybe break it down and sort of your best practices, best tips that you give out to people. Cool. And that you've learned from your sort of perspective.
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of unlike banking in the sense that applications open around October time. The deadlines tend to be late December to early January. I'd say do your research, because some of them are rolling, some of them are not rolling. But the process is kind of a cover letter. So, 600 to 750 words on exactly the same thing. So why the law, why corporate law specifically, and why the firm as well. I'd say the main thing is really to research the firm, look up what they do, what others say about them. So you find these out from chamber students, from corporate commercial law handbook, from FT, just to get a really good insight, and even look at like their annual review. So what I used to do is I try to kind of conceive of law firms as a business, because they're trying to turn over a profit. So you need to understand what are their strengths. Is it a banking predominant law firm? Is it really strong in litigation? I really try and find their niche, or what they say is their their unique selling point, and then from that try and match your skill set to theirs. So how I did that was I got involved in extracurriculars, so Warwick Entrepreneurs, Warwick Debating Society, Warwick Emerging Markets, just to really show that interest in not just the firm itself, but how the skills I developed would be transferable even though I didn't do law, because that's a question you're always going to be asked, why law if you do history? But it's really just about really backing yourself and trying to find those avenues to show that you're interested in the profession and you think you'd be a really good fit for the firm.
Cool. So moving on, so let's say we've gone through the application process, and just before I move on, we'll get Yemi to list all the resources he's used during his application process, and I'll put it in the description below. But let's move on to when you're actually in the vacation scheme. How do you make the most of it? Again, similar to the Insight Days, and get that to hopefully converting that into a training contract or another internship.
Yeah, no, so actually, in order to get the vacation scheme, you'd have to do interviews after that. So like 2 or 3 interviews, whether that's case studies or competency-based questions. When you get to the firm, what you have said at interview, they'd be looking to know that that's true. So I wouldn't, say something, you're interested in something that you're not, because you'd probably be placed in a practice area where they'd expect that passion to be demonstrated. And also generally at the end of vacation schemes, there's a conversion interview at the end. So really they are looking to see that you'll excel, and all eyes are kind of on you 24/7. So don't try and put up an act, because it'll kind of be seen through. But I'd say, again, what I tried to do was to try and be proactive. So even when I wasn't getting a good stream of work, I'd go around and just be like, hi there, my name's Yemi, is there anything I could help you with? And generally there'd be bits and pieces that you could pick up, and it just shows your drive and your motivation really to get stuck into the work. I'd say also really pay attention to the presentations they offer, because at least when I was at White and Case and Clifford Chance, it was almost that the week or 2 weeks were filled with presentations, networking opportunities, really telling you, like almost inculcating you in the culture of the firm, what their practice areas are, and then you could literally use what they told you in your interviews, as well as backed up by the experience that you gained, from doing the actual work at the firm.
Great. I think we'll move on to the next and the sort of final main section. So, awesome.
Cool.
Okay, so we're on the final section, and it gets a little bit complicated here with some of how it works, as Yemi's been trying to explain to me, but I'll let him explain. Depending on your situation, hopefully it covers whether you're second year, third year, non-law and law discipline. So do you want to explain the kind of recruitment process?
Cool, perfect. So at the point where you got to final year, there's 2 routes you can apply if you're a non-law student. So you can apply for a vacation scheme again on kind of the winter intake, or sometimes firms do Easter intakes, where it's a 2-week scheme, or you apply directly to a training contract. If you're a law student, when you're a final, you'd only be able to apply for a training contract, but you'd be afforded the opportunity to apply to all of the other VAC schemes in second year. In terms of the process, I'd say it's very similar. So both in terms of the training contract and the VAC scheme application. So, initial application form, then you have to do 2 or 3 tests, ranging from verbal tests to situational judgment tests to Watson glazes. So I'd really try and research the firms to see what specifically their process is, and then prepare for that as you go along. And then you'd have interviews. So those would be 2-3 interviews with partners, associates, graduate recruitment on if you'd be the right fit. In terms of if almost looking back at the process, so you'd have to do a GDL if you're a non-law student graduating. So that's post-graduation, you go to either BPP or University of Law to do a 12-month kind of conversion course, which is almost like a 3-year law degree compressed into 1 year, so it's quite intense. And then afterwards, you'd be doing a 6-month LPC, or some firms now call it LLM PLC, which is almost like a master's legal practice course, which is literally the qualifying course you need to become a solicitor in England and Wales, at least. So all in all, the process would take 3 years of your degree and then 1.5 years of extra study before you can commence your 2-year training contract after that.
So the training contract is something that you've sort of confirmed.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about so it's probably easiest to explain with you, but with you specifically. So what's your next sort of 3 to 5 years looking like after graduating uni?
Yeah, so I was quite lucky in that I converted after the vacation scheme. So I got my training contract and deferred it by 6 months also to start in August 2021, which is quite daunting, because then you know essentially where you'd be in 2023. So after graduation, I'd be going into BPP. So it's almost like it's basically a university in London, in Moorgate or Holborn, and I'd be doing the GDL followed by the LPC, 6 months at the same place. before actually joining the firm in 2021 with the Magic Circle firm in the city.
Yeah.
So that's my plan.
So it sounds a bit complex, but go through, break it down, and use all the resources online that you possibly can. Look at the firms, look at their individual recruitment processes.
The good thing about it also is that if you get a training contract whilst you're at university, the firms literally pay for those conversion courses, and they give you maintenance to live on at the side. So it's really good in the sense that it provides a lot of people with security, going into their final year, final exams, knowing that I have a path, I have a structured kind of path to become an associate.
And without the backing of a large corporate law firm or other types of law firms, you have to self-fund this, right?
Yeah, so you'd have to pay, and it's quite a lot. So this is quite kind of the reason why the legal profession is quite hard to get into, just the fees. It's around ranging from 15 to 20 grand. Just for the GDL, and then the LPC another 15 grand. So if you're not, then you're looking at 40 grand of debt. So it's really advised that you should try and get a training contract, either during your degree or while studying, so that they can reimburse you the costs going forward.
Perfect. Right, we're going to go on to the final section where Yemi's just going to give his final thoughts, any extra tips and sort of things that you guys need to be able to put yourself in the best position to get involved in the world of corporate law.
Cool. Yeah, so I'd say in terms of tips, I'd what I did anyway was to buy the Commercial Law Handbook by Jake Schloger. He's an ex-Warwick Finance Society president or chairman, I can't remember, but it's a really good book breaking down kind of a practice area. So, anything from M&A to project finance to antitrust and litigation, and it just gives you a really good overview of what exactly law firms do. And then I take that learnings that you've gained from that book and apply that through reading the FT companies and market section, for example, looking at the current live deals going on and actually thinking, how would a lawyer advise and help a firm overcome this situation, whether it's a cybersecurity hack, a lawsuit, whatever. So it's just really good to start thinking in the mindset of a commercial lawyer, and then just apply that. I'd say second is really try and find mentors within the law firms. So it's all well and good, asking your friends to proofread your application forms, but by going to these open days and insight schemes, you really get a feel for, is this a place I can see myself in the next 4 years? Because that's essentially the commitment. And if you can find people in those firms who have a vested interest in you doing well and just succeeding, not just to recruit them into their specific law firm, but just in general, it's really invaluable, because then you get their learnings from the mistakes they've made to how they're progressing, and it's just a good way to really almost feel that you're almost involved in the legal profession before you even get the training contract offer.
And I think mentorship spans beyond just law, finance, any industry that you're interested in. Find someone that's done something similar, approach them with a value proposition. These people are busy, they don't have too much time, but if you can offer some kind of value proposition, whether it's I'll help you out, I'll buy you a coffee, I'll help you write an article or something like that, anything you can do that sort of benefits them and shows that you're keen. Sometimes they're still going to say no, but a lot of times, people want to help others out that are showing a keen interest.
Definitely. And I'd say a final tip would be really to just persevere, keep going. With banking, law, consulting, it's very, very competitive. So really don't, if a firm rejects you from an open day, still apply for their vacation scheme. Just keep going and keep churning out those sort of, research tips. Really, keep just, how am I going to say this? Just basically keep trying to, show the firm that even though you've had setbacks, that you can overcome those, whether that's through your clubs, whether that's through going to the firms, and just keep showing that interest, because eventually it pay off. I mean, in terms of my breakdown, I applied to maybe 6 firms, law firms in second year. I got to 3 assessment centres and got 2. So it just kind of tells you that, whoever you are, however many experiences you've had in corporate law, banking, whatever, rejection happens to all of us, but they really just want to know that you can keep pushing, and I'd say that's the main thing. I'd say
persistence and don't give up.
Definitely.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Yemi. It's been a pleasure.
No worries. Cheers.
Just before we sign off, I'm going to let Yemi tell you about his details, so if you want to get in contact with him, I'm sure you're open to that.
Yeah, sure. So my details are, you can contact me on LinkedIn, so it's Yemi Adeola. On the bio of that's got my email, so whether that's with Warwick Entrepreneurs or personal email, I'm free to, reach out to me and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. You can also see me on campus if you're a Warwick student. Just message me on Facebook and I'll try and get back to you.
Perfect. Links are going to be in the description.
No worries. Thanks, guys.